Beneath the wide blue skies of central Mexico lies a land sculpted by fire and water. Mountains rise like silent guardians of time. Volcanoes smoke in eternal watchfulness. The Valley of Mexico, heart of creation itself. Here, nature shaped myth and civilization alike. Lakes mirrored the heavens, calm yet alive. The earth breathed stories of gods and kings. Every breeze carried whispers of destiny. Before the Aztecs, others had ruled and fallen. Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, had once risen. Its pyramids pierced clouds, echoing divine ambition. Toltecs, Mixtecs, and countless others thrived here. Each left their mark, their faith, their ruins. The valley remembered every dream, every fall. By the time of the Aztecs' arrival, the land was sacred, ancient, alive. A stage set for the next great empire, where myth and reality would soon collide. And from that collision, legends would be born, long before Tenochtitlan's shining temples. There was Aztlan, the place of the Harans, a paradise lost in the mists of memory, a homeland guided by gods and stars. The Aztecs called themselves Mexica, the chosen people. They lived in harmony with water and sky. But prophecy stirred in their hearts and dreams. Their god, Huitzilopochtli, spoke through vision and flame. He commanded them to leave their sacred island. Seek the sign, the eagle upon the cactus. And so began their sacred migration. Years turned to decades, deserts to mountains. The people carried idols, songs, and hope. They endured hunger, storms, and endless wandering. But faith held them strong, unbroken, united. Aztlan faded behind them like a forgotten dawn. Yet its spirit burned within every step, for they believed destiny awaited them ahead. A land chosen by gods, promised by prophecy. The journey had only just begun. At last, the wandering tribes reached a great valley. In its center lay a shimmering inland sea. Lake Texcoco, a vast, reflective, untamed. Waters glimmered beneath the rising sun. Birds circled, calling to unseen spirits. The Mexica stood at its edge in awe. Marshes stretched where land met water. Small islands floated like emerald dreams. Here, they saw both hardship and hope, but the signs still eluded them. They built temporary homes upon the shore, traded with neighbors, watched the seasons turn. Yet still their God whispered, "Not here." Until one fateful day, a vision appeared, and destiny revealed itself at last. Upon a small island, surrounded by reeds, an eagle stood proudly on a cactus. In its beak, a serpent struggled and hissed. The sun blazed behind like divine fire. The prophecy had come alive before their eyes. They fell to their knees in reverence. Tears filled their eyes as faith was fulfilled. This was the sacred place foretold by gods. Here the eagle ruled, symbol of the sun. Here life would rise from mud and water. Huitzilopochtli's voice thundered within their souls. Build your city where this eagle stands. The omen was clear, divine, absolute. A land unwelcoming, yet full of promise. Swamps would soon become streets of stone. The people began to dream of greatness. Each reed and stone held divine purpose. They saw temples where herons once nested. They heard drums echoing across future plazas. A vision of empire was now reality's seed, and from that moment, their destiny changed. The Mexica were no longer wanderers. They had found their home, their heart. The gods had spoken, and the world would listen. The eagle's wings would soon cast mighty shadows. From swamp and sorrow, they built a miracle. They laid foundations upon floating islands. Stone by stone, faith turned into form. Temples rose where waters once glistened. The city of Tenochtitlan was born. Canals shimmered under golden sunlight. Causeways stretched toward distant shores. Markets bustled, pyramids reached the heavens. The Mexica had fulfilled divine prophecy. Their new world glowed with sacred energy. Here, religion and empire merged as one. Each brick was an offering to their gods. Each dawn began with prayer and blood. The rhythm of life beat with divine purpose. The city became a symbol of cosmic order. From the heart of Lake Texcoco, a new civilization had taken flight. The eagle had found its sky forevermore. Tenochtitlan, the crown jewel of the sun. A legend reborn, destined to endure eternity. In ancient times, a legend was born. Far in the north lay the land Aztlan. Sacred waters shimmered beneath divine skies. Here, the Mexica people began their destiny. Priests spoke of gods calling them forth. Visions filled the nights with sacred fire. An eagle's flight became their living prophecy. The journey ahead would shape their soul. They carried idols, songs, and holy relics. Families walked through mountains, deserts, and rivers. Their feet bled, yet their faith burned brighter. Each step echoed a promise from the gods. Aztlan faded behind them like a dream. Before them stretched endless, unknown lands. Every sunrise was a test of belief. Every sunset, a vow to keep going. They did not wander for comfort or wealth. They wandered for the voice of destiny. In every hardship, they saw divine purpose. In every loss, they found spiritual strength. The road through central Mexico was merciless. Dry winds howled across valleys of dust. The Mexica faced hunger, fear, and rejection. Every tribe saw them as strangers, invaders. They begged for food and shelter at night. Sometimes welcomed, sometimes driven away violently. Children cried from thirst under burning suns. Yet faith kept their hearts from breaking. The priests told them pain was sacred. Every wound was proof of divine choice. Their God tested them through endless suffering. And the people endured with silent devotion. They learned to survive on what remained. Roots, snakes, and river fish became offerings. Each dawn, they gave blood to the sun. Each dusk, they prayed for another chance. Through struggle, unity grew within their ranks. The weak found courage beside the strong. They learned the ways of surrounding tribes. War, craft, and faith became their foundation. Their journey brought them into powerful lands. City-states flourished across the Valley of Mexico. The Mexica arrived as servants, not conquerors. They offered strength in exchange for survival. They built temples for kings and nobles. They fought as mercenaries in foreign wars. They watched the strong and studied their methods. Every defeat became a lesson in power. Culhuacan, Azcapotzalco, and others ruled proudly. The Mexica learned diplomacy and silent endurance. They waited, gathering knowledge and divine favor. Their time had not yet come to rise. From others, they absorbed culture and language. From enemies, they learned fear and respect. In every new alliance lay hidden betrayal. Yet through betrayal, they learned to persist. Then came a vision beneath the burning sky. An eagle perched upon a cactus, devouring a serpent. The priests fell to their knees in awe. The prophecy had at last revealed itself. Before them stretched a swamp of shimmering water. Marshes, mud, and reeds surrounded the shore. No tribe had claimed this desolate place. But the Mexica saw divine promise there. They built huts from reeds and mud. They created floating gardens upon the lake. Each garden fed the hungry and hopeful. Each stone they laid honored their gods. Mosquitoes bit, storms raged, but they endured. Faith turned the impossible into daily survival. Lake Texcoco became their sanctuary of destiny. From despair, they began to build hope. In 1325, their city took its first breath. Tenochtitlan, the heart born from the swamp. Temples rose where reeds once stood trembling. Canals shone beneath the golden light of dawn. The Mexica carved their home from water and faith. They built bridges, farms, and sacred altars. Their warriors stood guard over divine foundations. Their women nurtured families with courage and pride. Every dawn, drums echoed across the lake. Every night, torches burned before the gods. What began as exile became a civilization. What began in pain became eternal glory. Tenochtitlan stood defiant against nature itself. A city built on prophecy and sacrifice. It was the living heart of Mexican faith. From struggle, the Aztec Empire began to rise. As Tenochtitlan grew from swamp to strength, challenges surrounded its every border. The Mexica were skilled, but power alone could not sustain them. Larger city-states Texcoco to the east and Tlacopan to the west watched with caution. Rivalries simmered across the Valley of Mexico, where alliances. The Mexica rulers understood that war could build, but alliances could endure. They approached Texcoco, a city rich in wisdom and culture. They reached out to Tlacopan, strong in warriors and resources. Together, these three would balance power in a land ruled by ambition. Negotiations were more than politics, they were sacred rituals. Gifts, marriages, and oaths sealed by gods bound the cities together. Each ruler promised loyalty, defense, and shared conquests. The alliance was not born of trust, but of mutual need. Through diplomacy and foresight, the Mexica became equal among greater powers. They learned to weave politics into faith and war. And within these fragile partnerships, the seed of empire was sown. Out of strategy came destiny, the birth of the Triple Alliance. Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan joined hands in power. It was more than an agreement, it was an empire's foundation. Each city brought strength, the warrior, the scholar, and the merchant. Tenochtitlan led with divine authority and fierce ambition. Texcoco contributed knowledge, governance, and sacred tradition. Tlacopan balanced a triad with warriors and trade routes. Together, they became an unstoppable force across the valley. The alliance divided conquest spoils in sacred proportion. Tenochtitlan claimed the lion's share, as its gods demanded. Texcoco managed administration and justice across conquered lands. Tlacopan supplied warriors and stability to the growing domain. Temples rose in all three cities as symbols of unity. Blood sacrifices marked the covenant between their gods. This unity transformed scattered tribes into a single empire. The Triple Alliance was not mere politics, it was prophecy fulfilled. With the alliance formed, the Mexica gaze turned outward. Warfare became both religion and art for their people. Their armies moved like divine storms across the valleys. Banners of eagles and jaguars struck fear into nations. Each campaign began with prayers, omens, and blood offerings. Priests read the stars to choose the day of battle. Warriors painted their bodies, invoking Huitzilopochtli's fiery spirit. Victory was seen as proof of divine favor, but conquest was not only through sword and spear. Diplomacy marched beside the army in quiet strength. The Mexica offered protection, trade, and shared prosperity. Many city-states joined them willingly, seeking stability and faith. Those who resisted faced relentless might and sacred fury. Temples were built over conquered altars, symbols of dominion. Yet the Mexica often spared the wise and skillful. They understood power was strongest when shared, not destroyed. Through cunning and conquest, the empire began to breathe. Each victory expanded their reach, their faith, and their name. And the eagle banner of Tenochtitlan soon cast its shadow across all Mexico. With conquest came wealth, and wealth demanded order. The Mexica created a tribute system unlike any before. Every conquered city paid in goods, labor, and loyalty. From distant valleys came gold, cacao, feathers, and maize. Caravans flowed endlessly into Tenochtitlan's heart. Merchants crossed mountains and lakes to deliver their due. Each tribute was both payment and recognition of Mexica's supremacy. To give was to serve the sun and the empire alike. Tribute lists were carved in codices and stone records. Inspectors ensured no city withheld what was promised. Failure meant punishment. Loyalty brought peace and prosperity. This system became the empire's lifeblood and pride. Markets bloomed with color, sound, and sacred exchange. Tenochtitlan glittered with foreign luxuries and sacred offerings. The city's wealth rivaled the imagination of distant lands. Gold, jade, and food sustained the empire's endless hunger. Through tribute, the Mexica controlled economy and obedience alike. They ruled not only through fear, but through irresistible prosperity. The tribute system became their invisible weapon of power. By the mid-15th century, Tenochtitlan had no equal. Its temples touched the heavens, its canals gleamed like mirrors. The city pulsed with life, order, and divine rhythm. Every street, every market, spoke the language of power. Foreign emissaries bowed before the emperor's throne. They brought gifts of gold, jade, and submission. Priests conducted ceremonies to honor both gods and empire. The air smelled of incense, flowers, and sacred fire. Tenochtitlan became more than a city, it was the world's heart. From its markets flowed goods to every corner of the land. From its temples flowed faith that bound all Mexico together. And from its warriors flowed fear that kept peace alive. The Triple Alliance had transformed vision into reality. The swamp-born settlement had become the crown of nations. Tenochtitlan ruled the valleys, like the sun rules the sky. And beneath its glory, the Aztec Empire stood unchallenged. The Aztec world was built on sacred order. Every person had a place in divine design. Society moved like a great cosmic machine, precise and balanced. From emperor to farmer, all served the god's will. At the top stood the Huitlahuache, the great speaker. He was chosen not only for strength, but divine wisdom. His word was law, his presence the voice of heaven. Beneath him stood nobles, warriors, and high priests of the sun. These nobles lived in stone palaces adorned with murals. They governed provinces, led armies, and judged disputes. Their lives were bound by ritual, duty, and sacred responsibility. They lived not for comfort, but for honor and tradition. Below them were commoners, farmers, and artisans of skill. They built the temples, grew the maize, and wove the cloth. Their work sustained the empire's heart, Tenochtitlan itself. They paid tribute and served in war when called. At the lowest rank were slaves, yet even they had worth. Some were born to bondage, others enslaved by debt. Yet they could earn freedom through bravery or devotion. Their humanity was recognized through ritual, not forgotten. In this sacred hierarchy, each soul had purpose. The empire survived through structure, faith, and discipline. No one stood outside the cosmic order of the gods. Education was not privilege, it was duty and destiny. Every child, noble or common, learned the Aztec way. Schools shaped minds as temples shaped the soul. Knowledge was the foundation of faith and power. For noble children, there was the Comacac. Here, discipline ruled stronger than comfort or rest. Boys studied astronomy, law, religion, and leadership. They learned to speak with wisdom and command respect. Priests trained them in sacred chants and rituals. They fasted, prayed, and endured trials of the spirit. To serve the gods, they first had to master themselves. The Comacac forged leaders who could guide nations. For the commoners stood the Tenochtitlan, the house of youth. Here, young men trained for war and hard labor. They learned to obey, to fight, and to serve bravely. Each scar earned in training was a mark of pride. Teachers instilled courage, discipline, and respect for elders. Every lesson was a step toward divine duty. Education united all classes under the same sacred purpose. To be Aztec was to learn, to fight, to serve. The rhythm of daily life beat in harmony with nature. Families rose at dawn to greet the rising sun. Incense burned in homes as prayers filled the air. Each day began not with work, but with gratitude. Meals were simple yet sacred in their preparation. Maize, the heart of life, appeared in every dish. Tortillas, beans, squash, and chilies nourished the people. Chocolate was reserved for nobles and ceremonies divine. Clothing revealed one's place in the social order. Commoners wore maguey fiber, while nobles donned cotton. Bright feathers, jade ornaments, and gold marked the elite. Every color, every thread carried meaning and status. Festivals filled the calendar like stars in the sky. Each month celebrated a different god or season. Music, dance, and sacrifice honored the balance of life. Families joined in ritual, keeping faith alive through joy. Children learned respect by watching their elders at prayer. Wives tended the home as husbands farmed or fought. Community thrived through cooperation and shared belief. Life in Tenochtitlan was humble, yet divinely structured. Among the Aztecs, merchants held secret power. They were called Pochteca, travelers between worlds. While nobles ruled cities, merchants connected empires. Their journeys carried both goods and precious intelligence. They crossed mountains, deserts, and distant kingdoms. Their trade routes stretched as far as the Gulf Coast. They brought back gold, jade, cacao, and exotic feathers. But more valuable than goods was the knowledge they gathered. The Pochteca acted as spies for Tenochtitlan's rulers. They learned the strengths and weaknesses of distant lands. Before armies marched, merchants had already mapped the terrain. Their silence and loyalty were rewarded with great respect. They lived under strict laws and divine protection. Their guilds were powerful, their code unbreakable. Each merchant's success was an offering to the gods. Trade, in their hands, became a sacred duty. Through them, the empire breathed beyond its borders. They spread the Mexican name from coast to jungle. Without Pochteca, the Aztec world would have remained isolated. They were the unseen messengers of empire and destiny. The Aztec world thrived on balance and obedience. Their laws were carved in stone and spirit alike. Justice was not mercy, it was sacred harmony restored. To break the law was to offend the gods. Judges held courts beneath the gaze of divine idols. Every case, from theft to treason, was treated with ritual gravity. Punishments were swift, but fairness guided the verdict. No one, not even nobles, stood above the law. Adultery, theft, or drunkenness could mean death or slavery. But honesty, loyalty, and hard work brought respect and peace. Public trials reminded all that order was divine will. The empire survived through fear of chaos, not tyranny. Children learned obedience before they could walk or speak. Families upheld moral discipline with sacred responsibility. Even in markets, inspectors enforced honesty and precision. Every act reflected either harmony or insult to the gods. This discipline shaped a society both rigid and enduring. Laws bound their world, but also gave it strength. Through justice, the Aztec civilization remained united and immortal. The Aztec world pulsed with divine presence daily. Every mountain, river, and star held sacred meaning. At the center stood Huitzilopochtli, the sun and war god. He guided warriors, kings, and the destiny of Tenochtitlan. His strength symbolized the eternal struggle of light and darkness. Each sunrise was a victory over chaos, won through faith. The Mexica believed their god demanded devotion through action. Every conquest, every temple, honored his blazing power. In his name, the Aztecs built empires, fought wars, and sought glory. To fail him meant plunging the world into endless night. The Aztecs saw existence as a fragile cosmic cycle. They believed they lived beneath the fifth sun, the final age. For previous worlds had risen and fallen in destruction. The gods had sacrificed themselves to create this era. Thus, human offerings became repayment for divine sacrifice. Temples stood as bridges between heaven and earth always. Atop the great temple, priests performed rituals to renew balance. Smoke, drums, and chants rose to the heavens in rhythm. Each ceremony ensured the sun's journey would continue tomorrow. For the Aztecs, ritual was survival, not mere devotion. Sacrifice was sacred, not cruelty, but cosmic necessity. The Aztecs believed blood fed the heart of the universe. Without it, the sun would weaken and darkness would reign. Captured warriors were honored as gifts to the gods. Their hearts were offered, their spirits joining celestial battles. Thousands gathered to witness the divine exchange of life. Priests, clad in sacred robes, carried out the holy act. Every beat of the drum echoed the rhythm of existence. Through sacrifice, they ensured harmony between earth and heaven. It was faith through blood, the essence of Aztec belief. Priests stood as intermediaries between gods and people. Their lives were marked by discipline, fasting, and study. They mastered complex calendars predicting seasons and divine will. The Tenochtitlan and Wali guided rituals and agriculture. Every ceremony aligned with celestial movements and divine order. Priests read omens, guided rulers, and determined sacred timing. They interpreted dreams, eclipses, and the stars' subtle messages. Through sacred chants, they connected humans to cosmic rhythm. Their wisdom maintained the fragile balance of heaven and earth. To defy the calendar was to invite divine chaos itself. Throughout the year, Tenochtitlan pulsed with sacred festivals. Each month honored a different god with song and dance. Communities gathered to celebrate fertility, war, harvest, and rain. Offerings of flowers, food, and feathers adorned temple altars. Children learned chants, elders retold stories of divine origins. The city became a theater of devotion and spectacle. These festivals unified the empire through shared faith and rhythm. They strengthened loyalty, culture, and the spirit of sacrifice. Religion wasn't confined to temples, it lived in every street. Through ritual, the Aztecs sustained their gods and themselves. In the middle of Lake Texcoco, destiny took shape slowly. A city rose where no city should have existed. Marshes, mud, and shallow waters surrounded the Mexica people. Yet faith, vision, and determination conquered the impossible every day. They remembered the prophecy, the eagle upon the cactus. Men labored waist deep in the cold, murky lake water. They drove wooden stakes deep into the earth's wet belly. On these foundations, they built platforms of stone and mud, each structure layered upon another, stronger with every season. They learned to make land where none had existed before. The city began small, huts, shrines, and dirt causeways only. But soon, ambition transformed it into something extraordinary. Streets emerged, straight and measured like divine geometry. The lake reflected each rising wall like a mirror of glory. By dawn, smoke rose from thousands of hearths each. As the centuries passed, Tenochtitlan became the jewel of Mesoamerica. Its markets bustled, its temples towered, its canals glistened. A floating metropolis that defied time, space, and imagination. Truly, it was a city built upon dreams and delivered through devotion. Tenochtitlan breathed through its canals, arteries of a living body. Canoes glided softly, carrying merchants, food, and flowers daily. The city thrived upon movement, graceful, rhythmic, eternal. Each waterway shimmered with life, trade, and divine order. 3 monumental causeways stretched like arms toward the mainland. North to Tepeyac, west to Tlacopan, and south to Iztapalapa. Each built with stone, timber, and volcanic rock foundations. Wide enough for armies, priests, and processions to cross proudly. Beyond the city, something even more ingenious appeared: chinampas. Floating gardens built upon layers of mud, reeds, and roots. They formed patches of fertile land atop shallow waters gracefully. Men cultivated maize, beans, squash, and chilies all year, each plot anchored by willow trees to keep. Over time, these gardens turned lake into living farmland. They multiplied food, beauty, and life, a true ecological wonder. When viewed from above, the city looked alive, veins of green and blue. The chinampas shimmered like emerald tiles, floating on silver waves. This was the secret of Aztec abundance, their silent triumph of ingenuity. Nature wasn't conquered, it was transformed and embraced with reverence. At the heart of Tenochtitlan stood the mighty Templo Mayor, a pyramid of stone rising toward the heavens like prayer. 2 twin shrines crowned its summit, 2 gods, 2 worlds, one for Huitzilopochtli, god of war and the blazing sun. The other 4 Tlaloc, god of rain, water, and renewal. Together they represented life's eternal balance, fire and rain, death and birth. Each staircase symbolized a divine path between earth and sky. Thousands of steps, each carved with stories of conquest and faith. Here, emperors were crowned, wars were blessed, lives were offered. Drums thundered, conch shells cried, incense curled into the blue air, crowds gathered below, their eyes fixed upon the summit of faith. They believed the temple's peak touched the realm of the gods themselves. At its base, carvings of serpents guarded sacred chambers. Offerings of jade, shells, and human hearts filled its altars. Every ceremony echoed through stone corridors and across the city. The temple's shadow stretched across markets, homes, and canals alike. It wasn't only a place of worship, it was the empire's soul. Power, faith, and identity fused in every block of limestone. The Templo Mayor was the beating heart of the Aztec world. Tenochtitlan was not built at random. It followed the stars. Every street, temple, and plaza mirrored celestial design precisely. The Aztecs believed their city was a miniature universe itself. Its 4 main districts represented the 4 cardinal directions. At the center lay the sacred axis, the heart of creation. From this center, energy flowed outward, spiritual, social, political. Even the placement of temples followed cosmic mathematics, each aligned with solstices, stars, and sacred astronomical events. The city's symmetry symbolized harmony between gods and men. By walking its streets, citizens retraced the pattern of creation. Their homes surrounded shrines, markets, and courtyards in divine proportion. Water channels reflected the heavens, turning the city into a mirror. Urban order was cosmic order, the divine blueprint made visible. When sunlight struck the Templo Mayor at dawn precisely, its shadow aligned perfectly with the city's central axis. It was more than architecture, it was sacred choreography. The city lived, breathed, and moved with the rhythm of the cosmos. When the Spanish first saw Tenochtitlan, silence fell over them. They had never imagined such splendor in a distant land. Stone causeways stretched 4 miles across the glittering blue lake. Aqueducts brought pure spring water from Chapultepec's distant hills. Aqueducts brought pure spring water from Chapultepec's distant hills. Clean streets, grand plazas, and temples glistened beneath the sun. Bridges lifted gracefully to let canoes pass below peacefully. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, a soldier of courts, wrote with awe. He described shining temples, blooming gardens, and endless markets. He confessed, "We stood as if enchanted by what we saw." Tenochtitlan rivaled Venice, Rome, or Constantinople in its grandeur. Its scale, beauty, and engineering surpassed imagination completely. Even its sanitation and water systems were advanced for the era. Public baths, drainage canals, and waste controls served the citizens. Streets were swept clean, fountains flowed, and gardens flourished. Order ruled where chaos could have reigned, a triumph of intellect. For the Mexica, building was sacred duty, not mere survival. Every structure honored the gods who had granted them life. Even the Spanish conquerors, though they destroyed the city, could never erase the genius that had created it. Tenochtitlan remains a legend, the city of water and light. A civilization that turned earth, stone, and faith into immortality. Subscribe for next part.